Google Chrome, and now
Uh-huh, okay.
on Safari it wouldn't even let me enter my name. So,
Strange. That's not okay.
yeah, that's all right.
Well,
Good,
it's great to see you. Looking
good to
forward so
see you.
much to have the chance to talk to you for a couple of minutes to hear your
Yes,
story again. Yeah, yeah.
yes.
Uh,
Uh,
I I heard you many years ago for the first time live in Fribourg. Yeah, you were there, and
hmm,
we made and really
okay,
enjoyed that. Yeah,
okay. I remember playing there. Yes.
yeah, yeah. I thought maybe we can start at the beginning. Maybe I just read that you had a musical father that conducted the choir in the church. Maybe you can take us back a little bit into those early
Yeah.
years, if you
Yeah.
don't mind. Yeah.
No, I don't. Yeah. So my father was active in church music. He was a choir director and he was a singer. He also was a member of a gospel quartet, just for singers.
Mhm.
And my mom also was musical. She played violin and piano, not professionally, but she had played in school. And
Mhm.
my mom and dad, I think, met in the church choir. You know, that's
Mhm.
that was their initial
Mhm.
meeting. So they wanted both my sister and I to have piano lessons, and I think my dad had hopes that maybe one day I would be the church accompanist, the choir accompanist, or something. Uh, but we
He played the
started.
organist in the church, or
No, no,
no, no.
just it
Mhm.
was a Protestant church, so it was primarily piano that would accompany
Mhm.
singers. And so I started taking piano lessons when I was 9, and
Mhm.
my sister, who's 2 years younger, started about the same time. And she
I
has
see.
continued. She's a musician also.
Mhm.
She directs the music program in a church, so she kind of
Oh,
stayed with
nice.
the program. Yes.
Nice. And you were exposed in that church. Speaking of which, you were exposed to polyphonic classical music, or was it gospel bluesy oriented, or what was it?
No, it was more traditional hymns, like
Uh
out of
huh.
the
Hmm.
out of the Lutheran hymnal or something like that.
Hmm.
But I've come to realize that that really had a profound impact on just the way I hear music and my musical taste. Like I love beautiful kind of chorale, kind of 4-part harmony, really
Hmm.
traditional. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of that came from hearing those hymns
Hmm.
very early.
Yeah, conditioned already back then by
Hmm.
what surrounded you, probably, right?
Yes, of course.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And so, a lot of musicians that I talked to, they at one point or another they played other instruments as well. Was it the piano, the first choice, the first instrument that you stuck with?
Yeah. Yes, it
Yeah.
was. And in years later, I dabbled with other instruments. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know, I've had a set of drums around for a long time,
Very cool.
and I think I tried to teach myself flute and saxophone at one point. I didn't get very far, but
Mm-hmm.
I certainly have an appreciation for those multi instrumentalists. That
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
learning one instrument is challenging. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
piano really is my instrument.
Yeah, it's the instrument anyway. Yeah, that's it's great. Yeah. And when you moved to San Francisco, was Joe Henderson around at that time as well?
Um, you know, he was kind of in the orbit of San Francisco musicians.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in San Francisco from 1975 to
Mm-hmm.
1977. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I was going up there a lot before that because I grew up in San Jose, California, which is just an
Okay.
hour south of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a real active music scene at that time, like lots of opportunities for young musicians to play. And
Mm-hmm.
there was also a really fantastic jazz club in San Francisco called Keystone Corner, and
Right.
all the national acts, touring jazz groups would, usually play a week long engagement there. So I had an opportunity to see, I mean, just about every legendary
Hmm.
uh, traveling musician at that time, and that was an incredible experience and a gift to see all of those musicians.
Hmm. And on your website is also mentioned Joe Farrell, which who's playing our love.
Yeah.
What you guys jammed right away along there at that time,
Well,
or?
yeah, actually, I met Joe Farrell shortly after I moved to Los Angeles, and
Mhm.
that um, the reason I came to Los Angeles was to continue working with Robin Ford, who I had met like 5 years earlier and had been
Mhm.
playing with Robin. And through Robin, I met a drummer named John Guerin. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
Yeah, the
he,
name, yeah.
yeah, he was a wonderful drummer. He had been in the LA Express, played with Joni Mitchell, played on countless recordings. He was a very active studio musician. And when
Mhm.
Joe Farrell moved to town, Joe was putting a quartet together, and John recommended me for that group. So I began playing with Joe Farrell, I guess in 1977. He
Mhm.
had a quartet as well as a big band that we would
Mhm.
play pretty frequently. And
Mhm.
I was a great admirer of Joe Farrell, from his own recordings and his work with
Mhm.
Return to Forever. So
Yeah, right.
he was quite a character. I had a lot of affection for him. A wonderful musician, and I learned a lot from him.
Mhm. Mhm. And I guess you probably started working professionally while being still a teenager, or you went to studying music at one point too, or?
I didn't really study music in school. I started attending college at San Jose State University, and I was playing basketball at the time. That's what I was really into, and so I played on the team there.
Mhm.
And about a year and a half into my college career, I just I was so taken with music at that point that I left school and um, I dropped out and started playing gigs locally in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I did that for about a year. Then I went back to
Mhm.
school for another year, and then I
Mhm.
permanently left school. So I finished 2.5 years of college studying other things, not music.
Mhm. Uh,
And I do. If I had to do it over again, I wish I had studied music in school and uh, had a more formal education, particularly for composition, writing for orchestras, and all
mhm.
conducting, all of those sorts of things. But
Mhm. Which you did later. I
which
think I
Yes, I've had the
yeah, on
opportunity
your
to
own.
do that since, but
Mhm. Mhm.
I learned it the hard way, you know, and
Mhm.
it took me longer. I think
Mhm.
being in school is a great opportunity to learn those foundational aspects of musicianship.
Mhm. Yeah, I love all those educational things that are out there that you contributed to. Like there is a wonderful clip about but just the way how you analyze music and how you got into it, and for example, with the different shapes of voicings, like 1, 2, 5, 7, or the
Right.
triads that are a fifth apart. It's just gorgeous stuff. I
Oh,
really
thanks.
admire that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So,
Yeah. So, I have found myself doing a lot of teaching, and I just recently retired after I was teaching for 23 years at a university in Los Angeles.
mhm.
And in the course of that time, I, have spent time trying to organize some of the things that I found helpful so I could share them with students. So a lot of that material comes from preparing lessons for uh, students, and also just trying to understand myself, what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
and in an effort to be able to expand it, not just be. I think when you really understand the inner workings of something, you're more able to adapt it and change it, expand on it, not just be stuck with
Mm-hmm.
that thing. So
Yeah.
I like to really try to understand what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I think that comes through. At least I can just talk for myself. I really admire that in you, that you're taking something and when you go deep into something, doors are opening, and that's the place that people call being creative, or having inspiration, because it's well, you're digging, and you'll find it eventually when you go there, right?
That's yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's one thing to, stay on the surface of something, to kind of, to be introduced to an idea and be able to
Mhm.
understand that. But the more time you spend with anything, the more is revealed to you. And it's really never ending. I mean, it's a lifelong quest,
Mhm.
but that's really what makes it exciting and continues to motivate. I mean, anyone who does that, it's
Yeah.
motivation,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
quest to learn more and understand more.
Mhm. Also would like to talk about your the band. I mean, Yellow Jackets, which is your baby. I would like to say, since you're the only member that's left from the original crew, right? Maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, yes,
Um, Robin Ford and you guys started with that. Is that correct?
right. Yeah. Well, really, I would give credit to Robin for initially bringing together the musicians that
Mm-hmm.
started Yellow Jackets, Jimmy Haslip on bass and the drummer Ricky Lawson. And
Mm-hmm.
going back to my moving to Los Angeles, it was to continue playing with Robin, and those are the musicians Robin had
Mm-hmm.
lined up to work with. So
Mm-hmm.
um, we made one recording with Robin called The Inside Story, and then he was going to continue making kind of more vocal and blues oriented music, and
Mm-hmm.
essentially we formed a band within a band to
Mm-hmm.
continue doing the instrumental music we had been doing. We formed Yellow Jackets, and
Mm-hmm.
Robin's manager at the time financed us making a demo, and it got
Mm-hmm.
into the hands of uh, the producer Tommy LaPuma, who was working at Warner Brothers at the time. And
Is
we
it
were,
true that he recommended the band name Yellow Jackets? Is that a true story?
I think he kind of okayed it, like he was okay. But
Uh,
Jimmy Haslip is the person who really came up with
uh-huh.
that idea, with that name.
Okay. Interesting side note. Again,
Yeah.
it sounded like you guys had like 20 names ready for those guys to pick one. But
Well, yeah, actually, when we were making this demo recording,
mhm.
Jimmy showed up at the studio with a piece of binder paper with, yeah, like 20 or 30 names. And
Mhm.
there
Just to
wasn't
be
a lot
ready.
of, yeah, and we didn't give it a lot of thought. It was like, okay,
Mhm.
Yellow Jacket, that's cool. I mean,
Mhm.
there was
Mhm.
nothing very deep or meaningful with that initial
Yeah,
choice.
usually those are the best band names when there's not too much thought about it. In my opinion, at least. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Beautiful.
it
Huh?
did it. I think it kind of captured sort of the colorfulness and the liveliness of the music,
Mhm.
so it
Mhm.
fit in that way, I think.
Yeah. And did you, from the beginning, compose for that band? Like from the early times up to now, I guess you're one of the main contributors to the
Right.
repertoire you guys play, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
I think initially, like on the first recording, I there like you hear it said, you have your whole life to write the music for your first recording or first album, and then you have to start really working and coming up with new music. But some of those pieces on the first recording, we had been playing with Robin, and actually the tune, the Imperial Strut, which was on the first recording, I was playing, years earlier with other bands and kind of modifying it and changing it through the years. So, yeah, the first recording and the demo that we did was a lot of music that I had written. And as going back to your earlier question about me being maybe the leader or something, there really is no leader in Yellow Jackets. Although I've been in the band since the beginning, it's always been understood that it's an equal partnership, and everyone is encouraged to write and contribute and be a part of whatever decisions are being made. So it really is a collective, I think a leaderless band, and we all respect one another and really want everyone to make a contribution.
And is it like something that kept you with the band since, like, I wrote down like a question, like how big a challenge it is to keep a band together? And I mean, you've gone through all those different phases with different people going and coming. Is there something like that you learned along the way, how to keep a band together? Since you're 30, 40 years now with Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, over 40 years. Yeah. I think the main thing, what I mentioned before, the fact that no one is being told what to do. I mean, everyone is a decision maker and is an equal partner and is equally invested in every aspect of the music. And that can be challenging sometimes too. It's maybe easier if one person says, okay, we're going to do this, and everyone agrees. But we've found the right personalities, the right combination of musicians and sort of people that get along and respect one another. And I think an interesting lesson has been, like, say, when someone writes a tune, when they bring it to the band, expect that it's going to change. And if you've made a demo of your song, don't get too attached to what you've demoed, because the other musicians are going to have input. And I've learned to really appreciate that and sort of surrender what ideas I might have, and really be respectful and considerate of what the other people are going to bring. And that doesn't mean you totally give up on everything, but you're open to these other ideas. And everyone is really good about, well, how about this, or how about that? And no, this doesn't quite work. And we work together to shape the music. And so that's important. Another kind of important, and just, I mean, it's all just common sense and basic things, but like, the people we have in the band are responsible. They're moral people. They don't have really bad habits. They don't create problems. They're really like the kind of person your mom might, you bring a friend home. Hi, Mom, this is my friend Bob Mintzer. Meet him. And every one of the guys are really cool people. And so that's been the case with all the people we've had in the band. They're really good human beings. And that's as important as the music. I mean, in terms of longevity. because there's
Mhm.
fantastic musicians everywhere, but to find people that really connect personally and get along and can travel together, and
Mhm.
face some challenges and adversity, you need really solid human beings. So
Mhm.
that's, I
Yeah.
think, been important.
Mhm. And when you compose, is it with Yellow Jackets in the back of your mind, or you would say, well, this tune fits better for another project because the band sound is very distinctive, that
Yeah,
you want to go? Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes, like, I mean, if we've scheduled a recording, we know we're going to record at a certain point, and I start writing music, I'm thinking of the band and the kind of,
Hmm.
in general, the kind of things we do. But
Hmm.
at the same time, I think, um, it's good to kind of stretch that too, to not be locked into that,
Hmm.
to find sort of newer, um, avenues. And
Hmm.
recently, Dane Alderson is the newest member of the band, our bassist, and he's a fine composer. But he writes in a somewhat different style than the rest of us. And on the last recording we made, which will be released in August, Dane wrote two tunes, and they're really
Hmm.
kind of a stretch. They're not the normal thing Yellow Jackets would do, although,
Hmm.
in the words of Bob Mincer, we've jacketized them. It still has the
Hmm.
band's personality, but coming from a different place.
Hmm.
Um, and also, personally, there's some music that I had written through the years that was really kind of quiet and a little bit more introspective, and I wasn't sure it really fit what Yellow Jackets did. So, last year I made a trio recording, and a lot. I did a few Yellow Jackets tunes, but also some of the music that I had written, but didn't think it was didn't fit Yellow Jackets quite as well. Uh,
Hmm.
was recorded for this trio recording. So,
Hmm.
uh, that's, you know sometimes that happens too. There'll be another venue for the music.
Hmm. Hmm. And when you travel, do you travel with your keyboard and the piano is at the place, and you have both
Mhm.
options of electronic and acoustic
Yeah. So
gear?
when right when we travel, I request an acoustic piano, and actually, we also request a Triton, which is a synth that I've been using many years, and I have MIDI setups and sounds stored on a
Hmm.
floppy disk, or you know
Hmm.
on my computer. So,
Hmm.
um, I bring my computer and I use that along with the Triton.
Hmm.
Occasionally, they can't get a Triton, so I do carry a MIDI keyboard. I have a Novation 49 key controller, and I use
Hmm.
MainStage with that, either
Hmm.
MainStage or Logic, and um, also, that's a really it's helpful for me to have a keyboard on the road when I'm in hotel rooms or long layovers. I can practice, work on ideas. So I always
Hmm.
have that keyboard with me.
Hmm. One last question regarding the band Yellow Jackets. In the early day, you had a guitar player, and we all know of keyboard player, guitar player, how you
Mhm.
can you stay out of each other's voicings or not to clash, or is
Yeah,
I mean that must have affected the early band too, to nowadays when you're the only one pressing the harmonies, so to speak.
yeah. I mean, I love the freedom of being able to change the chords, and
Hmm.
as long with the quartet, as long as it works with the melody and the bass note, you have a lot of freedom. Um, with guitar, uh, you have to really listen carefully, and kind of it's helpful to have more like parts, a
Hmm.
little more structured accompaniment. So, in the early days with Robin, we had played a lot together, so it was a really nice connection. More recently, well, actually now, 10 years ago, we did a recording and we toured with Mike Stern for like a
Oh,
year
really?
and a half. And that was really fun. And Mike is a very different player than Robin, but he has incredible ears, and he was really musical and respectful. And I really got into playing with Mike Stern too.
Mm-hmm.
And we found it's like you're having a conversation as an accompanist, or actually in the band. That's how we think of it. There's 4 or 5 people, but we're listening and we're leaving space for the other people to make their statement, and then someone responds, and you kind of toss it around.
Mm-hmm.
So um, if you listen and you leave space and you're respectful, I think those are the main important elements in uh, you know playing playing with anyone really, whether it's another chordal instrument or a melodic or
Mm-hmm.
rhythmic instrument.
But I guess, for example, a reharm like uh, like you were able to do is is probably easier when you're alone and you can hit any
Yeah,
bass note, or well, not bass note because we have a bass player,
yeah,
but the D can be the third of the B flat, but can be another. I mean, this kind of stuff with the
yes,
guitar player is probably quite funky then,
yeah. No,
in a good,
you
maybe in a
have.
good way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think you have to pick your spots. And
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes something that really works pretty well with another chordal instrument are passing chords, or little chords that just lead into the next chord, where there's maybe
Mm-hmm.
some, you've played the chord or at the beginning of the bar, say, and before the next
Mm-hmm.
chord arrives, as you can play a chord, like, maybe a diminished kind of chord that leads to that next chord, or some kind of passing chord. So
Mm-hmm.
there's those opportunities.
Okay.
And then with guitar and piano, sometimes I'll lay out and just let guitar accompany,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
or play very, very sparsely and let the guitar
Mm-hmm.
take the lead. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the guitarist will do the same thing. They'll lay out or take
Mm-hmm.
kind of a more supportive role and let the piano be the primary accompanist. So
Mm-hmm.
we 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 want to share those duties. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of touring, I saw that you will be in Switzerland at the end of the month,
Yeah, we
starting a
have
tour. Yeah.
yes, we'll be in Europe for 2 weeks. We're starting with two um, performances in Sweden. Excuse me, in Switzerland. Langenau, is that how you say the name?
Yeah, that's Langnau. Yeah, that's your
Lang-
first gig there at
yes,
Langnau.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then St. Moritz, we play the festival
Ah,
there.
the
I
second
think
one. Yeah.
that's the next gig. And
What date is that? You know,
uh,
by
I
any
could
chance?
I could
After
tell
that.
you. Let's see. Well, actually, all the dates are up on the Yellow Jackets website, but
Okay.
I'll tell you right now. Um, yeah, so Langnau is on July 29th. St.
Mm-hmm.
Moritz Jazz Festival, we're playing in the Dracula Club. That's um, that's July 30th. And then we go
Okay.
to, yeah, and then we're in Italy for quite a few gigs, and we end up in Serbia, actually. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of an interesting tour. Yeah.
You guys tour by shuttle, by bus, by train, by
You know,
bicycles?
what a, yeah. Mo, if we can stay off of airplanes, that's our first choice. But a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times you can't. So we fly when needed. If we can take
Yeah.
trains, we like to do that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for the Italian portion of the tour, we'll be driving, which
Okay.
is the best because then you can stop and
Can see
see
something.
things, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, my last kind of question would be: is there something like a regular, like practice routine, something that you do just to keep it rolling for yourself?
Yeah.
on and off the road?
Yeah. I mean, my practice time, especially while I was teaching, was mostly, um, I mean, I would do some basic things like um, there's voice leading exercises
Hmm.
I do, and some kind of not Hanon, but things, like just mechanical sort of
Hmm.
scale type things.
Hmm.
Um, but mostly, uh, well, I'll tell you right now what I'm doing. Since
Hmm.
I've retired from teaching, uh, I've started going back to a lot of the classical music that I've loved, and I'm trying to learn some new pieces. So right now I'm working on a Debussy piece,
Hmm.
a couple Scriabin pieces, some Bach, um, and there's this one Chopin piece that I'm trying to adapt to actually to play as a trio because it's beautiful harmony and it really
Hmm.
lends itself what I think kind of like a Keith Jarrett or something, acoustic piece. So
Hmm.
I love that music. I want to study that more. And yeah, ear training. I've been spending time doing that. Like one thing I like to do, and I thought this was really helpful for students too. If you're learning a standard, um, obviously you need to be able to sing the melody, but you can also play the melody and sing the roots, or um, play the roots, sing the melody, and then
Hmm.
uh, also arpeggiate the chords, like root, third, fifth, seventh, and back
Hmm.
down for every uh, chord. This works well for like jazz standards that are,
Hmm.
some move in a predictable way, but there's also some unusual progression. So, uh, and I have a little ear training app as well that I try to do every day. Intervals and chords, because if you want to really respond in the moment, you have to know what you're hearing, you know.
Yeah.
And so having a good ear and and knowing what the other people are playing is a really important aspect of musicianship. So those are some of the things I work on.
Uh-huh. Or what the birds next to your house are whistling too.
Yeah, do you hear some?
Not the pitches, but I hear the birds. Yeah.
Yes, we live kind of in the foothills, and we have a lot of birds in our neighborhood. Yeah,
Gorgeous. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you
So
so much, Russell,
yeah,
for this. Yeah, it's
yeah.
what a pleasure to hear that
Thanks.
from
So,
you. Yeah.
Simon, tell me a little bit about
That's right.
you. Yeah. What are you a musician yourself as well? You're
Yeah, I play clarinet and bass clarinet.
oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
So I was doing the stuff that you taught on the videos. I was doing on the piano, and then I moved to the clarinet and played those triads there. Yeah. So
Fantastic. Yeah,
yeah.
and you live near Zurich right now. That's your
Yeah. I live in Zurich. I also gonna play in Saint Moritz, but unfortunately not the same time. Otherwise, I could
okay.
come to
Uh-huh.
the Dracula Club to listen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
Just
so you're a full-time musician. That's your livelihood as well.
yeah. That's right. Yeah. I make a living by playing. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
Hmm.
have your own band? I need to check out some of your music. Do you have, are there
Well,
YouTube clips?
yeah. I mean, I'm more than flattered that you ask. I mean, I can send you some stuff to the email that you gave me, so you
Yeah.
can
Great.
listen if interested. Yeah. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Would love to do that.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. For sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it was really nice talking to you.
My pleasure, Russell. Yeah, it was
Thank.
great to see you and to hear from you. And safe travels,
All right. Yes.
successful
And
tour. Yeah,
thanks, and
until
have
next week.
good gigs yourself as well.
Thank you very much, Russell.
All
Okay,
right. Take care. Bye bye.
bye.